Welcome to Dark Loops and the What If Crew, a podcast for discussing the new Marvel series, What If? I'm your host, Dr. Scott Jordan, aka Zombie Scotty, cognitive psychologist, philosopher from Illinois State University. And tonight we discuss episode 6, What If Erik Killmonger Rescued Tony Stark? Fellow members of the What If Crew, please introduce yourselves and say a little something about who you are, and we will start with Daniel.
Hello, everyone. I am the pop mythologist. I run a blog called popmythology.com, through which I explore things like philosophy, psychology, religion, through the lens of pop culture.
Fantastic. How about you, Erik?
I'm Dr. Erik Wesselmann. I'm a social psychologist at Illinois State University. I love talking about psychology and its relevance to all things nerdy.
Fantastic. How about you, Stanford?
Dr. Stanford Carpenter. I'm a cultural anthropologist coming to you out of Chicago.
Excellent. And now for our special guests. First, we have proud vet and therapist extraordinaire, Mr. Travis Adams. Welcome to the show, Travis. Please tell us a little something about who you are, as well as who or what is your alias or superhero identity.
Awesome. I appreciate being here. Like you said, my name's Travis. I am a readjustment counselor for the Vet Center, specializing in working with PTSD from returning veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan. I also work with Vietnam veterans. I also do 2 nonprofits where we use scuba diving to help treat post-traumatic stress disorder for veterans.
Fantastic. And who or what is your alias and or superhero identity?
Growing up, I always thought Gambit, but more so recently, I've been really more to Hulk.
Hulk. I won't ask why, but I can imagine. And now for our next special guest, the one, the only, the winner of the 2020 Kate Wilhelm Solstice Nebula Award, the director of Dragon Con's Diversity in Speculative Fiction and Literature track, Mr. Jarvis Sheffield. Welcome to the show, Jarvis. Please tell us a little something about who you are and who or what is your alias or superhero identity.
All right. My name is Jarvis Sheffield, of course. I am the coordinator of Historic Tennessee State University's Media Centers, also the Imagineering Makerspace, and the Diversity Track Coordinator with Dragon Con, and creator of BlackScienceFictionSociety.com.
Fantastic. And who or what is your alias and or superhero?
All right. So you can't tell anybody this, but
totally confidential.
My alias is Octavius Butler.
Snap.
Nice.
Well played. Well played. So there we go. Now that we know each other, as per the What If Crew format, we're going to play this week's version of the What If game. And to run the game, our very own pop mythologist, Daniel Jun Kim is here. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Okay, Scott, thank you very much. I am now going to share the screen for all our players. Okay, so
I'm going to win this week.
You wish. I'm
I'm
just
going to
kidding.
win
Sorry.
this week. I got it all
I'm supposed to be
figured out.
neutral.
I
Okay.
predicted what all of you will write.
All right, dear players, can you see this screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna now pass over to the question of the week. And this week's what if question plays off of the episode, of course. And it is, what if Shuri and Pepper had not been able to figure out Killmonger's ploy? In other words, what if the way was wide open for whatever Killmonger wanted to do? And as we know, in the original episode, Shuri and Pepper did indeed figure it out, and the implication was they're going to stop him. But in this scenario, he can do basically what he wants. So I received 6 anonymous answers. I'm going to read each one. And as per usual, the players, you will guess whose answer belongs to whom. I advise you to wait until all answers have been shown and read so that you can then get a sense of, and you can sort of compare instead of choosing one now and be like, oh, no, that's Erik or that's Scott or, things like that. So without further ado, excuse me. Answer number 1. Killmonger without intervention, would become the new Black Panther by continuing to manipulate the royal family and Stark Industries. He could possibly use his influence and new resources to take over Wakanda and possibly make headway in taking over all of Africa and possibly other countries as well, given his resourcefulness. Okay, I'm gonna let that sink in for a bit.
It sounds like Eric.
It does sound
Yeah,
like Eric.
All
Oh.
all these social concerns.
Me
Okay.
caring about others.
Okay, gonna move over to answer number 2. Combining Wakanda's technology and weaponry with his own tactical genius, Killmonger starts out by liberating oppressed peoples throughout the world. The wretched of the earth rise up and eat the rich, creating tremendous hope for people at first. But Erik's own power lust eventually causes him to become a global threat as great as Loki or Ultron. Nick Fury assembles the Avengers without Tony Stark, but still they are no match for the full power of Wakanda and are defeated. Individual heroes who appear later in the MCU, such as Spider-Man, are no match for Killmonger, who, no longer content with just Earth, expands his empire outwards into space and establishes the intergalactic empire of Wakanda. The liberator has now become the oppressor. Right?
I think that's Daniel.
Answer
Especially
number
the Star Wars
2.
references earlier.
The best way to, as you know, confuse and bluff is to just like say attribute your own to someone else's, that's what they say.
Of course.
I don't know. Do any of you like Aerosmith? Because there's a nice little Eat the Rich reference in there too.
I like Aerosmith, but I didn't get the reference.
Okay.
I'm just saying that I think it's interesting that that essentially Eric and Travis are just gave us the exact same answer, like right one after the other.
One after the other, brother.
Well, we could be the same person.
Yeah, very close.
Well, I don't have any proof that you aren't. So
We're here virtually, but you've never seen us in the same room physically at the same time.
exactly.
You get that time stone, man.
Okay. Moving on to answer number 3. If Killmonger was free to continue with this plan unopposed, the world would be destroyed in a nuclear/vibranium war between the US and Wakanda. Killmonger ultimately would be okay with that because as he said in the MCU continuity, the world gave him nothing. So let it burn.
Let it burn, baby.
Let it burn. Harsh. Harsh.
Apocalyptic
harsh.
there.
Yeah. All right.
The whole community.
Travis and Jarvis are being real quiet here, man.
Okay, answer number 4. Killmonger. They're thinking, what have we gotten ourselves into? Answer number 4. Killmonger would be able to overthrow Wakanda, taking over the vibranium and making more of an army. Eventually turn on Ross, and no heroes are around to stop him. Eventually, he would be a dictator in the world, and no one will be able to stop him, leading towards a cataclysmic event like World War III.
Dun, 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 dun. Well, you guys don't have a whole lot of faith in Killmonger's ability to grow.
Yeah.
It's all doom and gloom here.
So look for the positive one for you. Got it.
Can any of you guys put together a different response? I mean, it's all the same.
I don't know. I think Scott's trying to throw us off because his last several responses were like Dickensian paragraphs, right? And in this one, it's very pithy.
All the same.
I almost just wrote Jesus wept.
World War III is not the same as letting it all burn, or maybe it
Or
is.
going into space, intergalactic empire.
Yeah, there's a little bit of difference here.
Little extra.
All right,
Exactly.
answer number 5. Ooh, a long one. Somebody didn't listen to the instructions.
Stanford.
Damn, man. That keyboard going.
Wakanda opens outreach centers in all major cities, offering courses in technical skills, geopolitical history, and critical race theory. Wakandan technology, overseen by Killmonger, hacks S.H.I.E.L.D.'s network and reprograms Project Insight to potentially assassinate threats to Wakanda's anti-colonial initiatives. Loki senses Wakanda's growing geopolitical power. And since Iron Man never came to be, he focuses his invasion on Earth, not on Stark Tower, but on Wakanda. Appreciative of Wakanda's efforts to establish a more equitable, inclusive Earth, the Avengers come to their aid. Instead of Iron Man, however, it is Captain Marvel who defeats Chitauri by producing a nuclear explosion in the wormhole. She was contacted by Sergeant Fury the moment he learned of Killmonger's takeover of Project Insight. Impressed with Killmonger's skills, Fury confronts him privately in the royal chamber as the battle for Wakanda rages outside. Oppressors at every level, huh? Victims too, replies Killmonger indignantly. Does it ever end? Asks Fury. I don't know, states Killmonger. I'm just gonna make sure we don't. Agreed, responds Fury, lighting a cigar. Wanna join the Avengers? Dun 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 dun.
There you go. There's a
Dun,
positive
dun.
outcome there, right there.
All right.
Someone thinks Killmonger can grow, or maybe Fury's more shady than we thought.
Maybe. Mhm.
Mm.
Possibility.
Enemy,
All right.
enemy, not a friend.
Okay, so no additional comments. Going to move on to answer number 6. Killmonger wins. Africa, Asia, Europe, North America, South America, the galaxy, the MCU, and then he sets its sights on the DC universe.
Fantastic.
More meta stuff. Second time the DC universe has made its appearance in this game.
Yeah, and they're always getting beat up. I mean, they got beat up in the last game when we brought them in.
Boycott by the DC fans out there.
Uh-oh.
Of whom I'm one, actually.
What if the DC actually had some humor?
Yeah, snap.
Okay. For a quick review, just so our contestants can formulate their answers in their minds, and quick review here. Answer number 1 is Killmonger takes over. Answer number 2 is Killmonger takes over. Although in this one, he starts out by liberating the oppressed, but kind of ends up becoming the oppressor once again. Answer number 3 is Killmonger takes over, but then lets it burn, and lets it burn. Okay. Answer number 4 is Killmonger takes over, and it leads to World War III. Answer number 5 is not Killmonger takes over, but we get a different look at Fury, possibly, or perhaps a different look at Killmonger. That is left to our imaginations. And answer number 6, finally, Killmonger takes over and goes on to take over the DC universe. Okay, I'm now going to stop this screen share. Players, please go ahead and fill out your answers. Once you are done filling it out, you will not be able to change them. Okay. Okay. Once you're all ready, you can just give me a show of hands so I can know when to proceed. I think Jarvis is still. Oh, okay. So everyone's
just
set.
a suggestion. I think we should offer to let everybody just save face right now, and we could just not reveal who won and just declare me the winner. And that way you don't have to deal with me gloating over like each and every one of your individual missteps.
Okay, Mr. Answer 2, just hold on there.
The other now is that you could just win gracefully.
Now, in fairness,
Well,
I
that's
do-
that's the reward for us not going through the pretense of acting like you guys could win.
I love it.
Now,
I
for
love it.
those-
as I've always said, there is no shame in losing to a superior foe.
Bring on the data, baby. Bring on the data.
Now, in fairness, for viewers who did not see last week's episode, this arrogance is not unfounded. Last time Stanford was the first all-time sweeper. He just swept all the answers. It was first time somebody got all the answers correct. So this is actually a bit of deserved arrogance right here.
Just make it
As
worse.
he nonchalantly takes a sip from his mug. Yeah, okay.
He's answering first, then, right?
Yeah, let's make him go first.
Okay.
As
that's good.
I sip the tears of my enemies from my mug.
Jeepers creepers.
Okay, then. On the
that
table.
humble pie, man. I'm gonna give you some whipped cream for that humble pie.
Okay, since he is just basically begging for it, Stanford,
Yes, exactly.
by all means, please go first. The usual procedure, you say number one, then the name of the person you think it is, and so on. And that'll also give our guests a chance to sort of see how they're gonna, announce their answers.
Right. And no weeping, please. It's not a dignified response. Number one is Scott. Number two is Daniel. Number three is Erik. Number four is Travis. Number five is Jarvis. And number six is yours truly.
Okay, let me document the score here.
I didn't know yours truly was playing today.
That.
Damn.
Okay, next, Scott, would you please give us your answers?
Yes, I have 1 Jarvis, 2 Stanford, 3 Travis, 4 Daniel, 5 Scott, and 6 Erik.
Okay, write down your score. And Erik, you are next, please.
Alrighty. I have 1 Jarvis, 2 Daniel, 3 Erik, 4 Travis. I had 5 with Stanford and 6 with Scott. I actually did it reversed.
Got us switched. There you go.
Okay. Okay, and that brings us to our 2 guests for today. You've had a chance to see how the answers are read. So using the same procedure, please, Jarvis, would you go ahead and share with us your answers?
Oh, and I apologize for Stanford's behavior. He's not used to having company. He just does.
All right, I have 1 Jarvis,
Yep.
2 Erik, 3 Daniel, 4 Travis, 5 Stanford, and 6 Scott.
Okay.
People think we
Gorgeous.
think alike, Stanford. There you go.
And then I had 1 Scott, 2 Dan, 3 Erik, 4 me, 5 Stanford, and 6 Jarvis. So I had Stanford's, but the last 2 switched.
Okay, so before I actually announce the winner, excuse me, not the winter.
The Winter Soldier.
Winter is coming. I'm just going to, for the audience who might be curious, I'm just going to quickly show which answers belong to whom. There we go. There we go. Okay, very quickly. So answer number 1. This belonged to our guest Jarvis.
Fantastic.
Hey.
Yeah.
Okay. Answer number 2, in which Liberator becomes
Boo.
oppressor. That belonged to me.
Boo, you're evil. That
It was the
supposed to be Stanford.
Spider-Man.
Was it the Spider-Man that gave it away? Was it the
Yeah,
Spider-Man that gave it away?
away
it's
from me.
true.
Intergalactic
Well done.
Empire.
Well done, guys.
Well, Travis, I've never met you before. How did you know I was a fan of the Intergalactic Empire storyline?
You mentioned Star Wars in the intro.
Oh my God, you are brilliant.
Look at the detective here, man.
It's got Batman here on our panel.
We may have a newbie
Okay.
serving up whipped cream on that humble pie for Stanford.
Oh my God, that is genius. All right. Answer number 3 belonged to Erik. Answer number 4 belonged to Travis. Answer number 5 belonged to Scott as per his usual
Come on,
word
man.
count, usual word count standards.
Yeah,
My
I
answer
watched-
here is related to a concern I have about this episode. I'll talk about it as we get there.
I watched some older ones and I saw Scott was a longer one. I was like, maybe he switched it this time.
I keep drawing me in. No, I couldn't. Because this is what would happen, man.
I keep trying to get out of wordiness, and it keeps pulling me back in.
I mean, Killmonger would play the long game. Fury would see the brilliance and bring him in the fold.
Okay, and this answer number 6 was Stanford. So what that leaves us with is another tie today. Stanford, you will be happy to know that even though you didn't win this time and sweep everything, you are one of the winners. You tied with Erik.
Oh,
Look at you guys. What did you guys get? Well, how many did they get, brother?
They both, excuse me, they each got 4 points. So pretty
Well
good.
scored.
Yeah.
Well
Very
done.
good.
Well, there we go. Thank you so much, Daniel, for seeing us through a game of what if. So, gentlemen,
But you know what the tiebreaker is, right?
No, I don't know that.
The tiebreaker is previous wins with deference to the most recent win. So
I see.
Jarvis,
so-
Travis, again, I apologize.
I do apologize, Erik, but you are the first loser.
so there's no lightning round.
I think Stanford's doing the game equivalent of gerrymandering there. He's just sort of drawing the line around.
I think the lightning round will come next week, gang, when they're going to bring Thor in, right?
Let's just skip all this next time and get to the fist fight.
There you go. There you go. So, favorite line, favorite scene, favorite character, favorite theme, and I'm going to jump in and start. No, actually, I'm going to wait because I love this episode. So I'm going to let everybody express their love for it. I did have concern about a couple of lines, but I'll wait. Let's get the love out there first. No, you guys got no love?
I'll go ahead and to jump in then. I really enjoyed the Watcher's comments towards the beginning and the end, sort of as meditations on heroism, right? So one of the things that when he was talking about, Stark not going through the crucible of trial, he used the phrase, heroes, focus on sacrifice. Right. And that's very much when you look at the research on how people define heroism, that's one of the top characteristics. And then at the end, one of the social functions of heroes is to inspire others. Right. And that's sort of how it's ending with Shuri and Pepper, basically being like, all right, we're going to move in. We're going to be the heroes. And
So I guess I'm going to jump in because you mentioned the Watcher, right? And you mentioned, and I agree with you. I appreciated that definition of heroism. It just kind of reminds the audience of psychologically what we're doing when you use those words. There was a phrase that the Watcher used that I actually found problematic, and that is a villain is given a new chance. And that, of course, refers to Killmonger. And what I was struck by that line because one of the things I truly loved about the Black Panther movie is Killmonger really a villain? And for the MCU to sort of authorize a script that just comes out, oh, by the way, the Watcher feels fairly comfortable calling Killmonger a villain. I just thought that was careless. In other words, I think if the writers of Black Panther had access to this script, they'd say, wow, we did a lot of work there. We don't want you giving that description. Anyway, I'll just stop there. I thought it was careless.
I'm gonna be interested. One thing that's interesting is looking at my online feeds and seeing a lot of people like loving it and a lot of people hating it. Like there was no in between, and a lot of it boiled down to like really what you thought of Killmonger, right?
Yes.
And then and also what you thought of snitching.
Of what?
So what you thought of snitching. So the people who didn't like it either had a big problem with the casting of Killmonger as a true villain, as opposed to, embracing his complexity, and then the other ones really had a problem with Shuri snitching on him at the end. Yeah, they had a real problem with it. They're like, what? Shuri's a snitch? I was like, oh, okay. But I really enjoyed this show for what it was, but there's a part of me that still wishes it had been something else. Because I don't necessarily think that, I think that what this showed is just the sheer cunning and deviousness of Killmonger, right? The way he just took everyone apart along the way. At the same time, though, I did kind of feel like I'm not sure that Killmonger necessarily would have decided to take everything over. I mean, his goals were still rather discreet, and this also takes place far enough in the past that I don't know that he would necessarily. I just don't know that we would have gotten this type of outcome. But watching him, I gotta say, I enjoyed watching him. I enjoyed watching him take apart Tony Stark's world and then taking apart Tony Stark. Another thing I really enjoyed was seeing Ramonda lead the Dora Milaje into battle. Right? It's like, oh, now we know who the real badass of the Dora Milaje is, right? And I also liked how that is also a reference to the original bringing in the Dora Milaje. They were warriors, protectors, and consorts to Black Panther. So I thought it was interesting that the wife of the king, T'Chaka, leads the Dora Milaje into battle, and she just completely makes us forget about Okoye.
Totally.
Yeah, I love the part where he just looks at her as like general, and then you see like kind of her light up and shift. And then at the end too, when she throws that spear and rips it through the last two and yells T'Challa and has that tear coming out.
Yeah.
That was really well done.
How about you, Jarvis?
I just was impressed by the guile that Killmonger had in this one. They didn't stray away from his characterization at all, and did a good job in terms of writing, I think. And I think my favorite line in the film, it was actually from The Watcher, where he said, "Heroes are not born; they're forged in darkness." I just think that just resonated with me for some reason.
Yeah, the second time I watched it, I don't know, I guess I absorbed the whole thing about there is no Iron Man a little more than I did the first time I watched it. And you kind of remember Stark's roots a little bit more, because they rehash them for you. I agree with you, Jarvis. I think they stayed true to Killmonger's character. He's brilliant. He's been in the world in ways that Tony Stark and the other Avengers really haven't. He's made his way through the military, so he knows how those systems work. And I mean, all what he ended up doing, well, on the one hand, he's deceiving his uncle. Well, what they didn't do is discuss the fact that the king hid the fact that he killed his brother from Wakanda again in this universe. And his nephew showing up was a surprise again in this universe. So for me, I like all roads lead to Wakanda is kind of what I'm getting out of Killmonger's character. And he came at it from a different route this time than he did in the other one, but he still ends up there. And when I wrote that little answer about, Loki goes after Wakanda and Fury sees what's going on and says, become an Avenger. I mean, a lot of these Avengers have had sordid pasts, and they get offered redemption by joining the Avengers. So I don't know that Killmonger would be disqualified from being invited to join the Avengers. And I think that kind of moral intrigue would have been a little more interesting than the Watcher coming right out at the front and saying, a villain gets another chance. I'm not sure that seeing Killmonger as a villain was the point of, at least in the movie.
Well, I thought that the scene that really allowed us to double down on some of the more interesting concepts in the MCU. And I'll also say this, in agreement with you, Scott, all roads lead to Wakanda. That also seems to be the general theory of what if you notice.
Right.
It's like they just keep coming back, you know, like maybe that is the fixed point, right?
Maybe that's the absolute. You're exactly.
But it also, I mean, I was thinking about the two quotes are actually uttered as back-to-back sentences that when we see T'Challa and in, you know, and he's in the after realm, and I love what he said. I love these two quotes. One is, "You believe the cure for human suffering is more suffering," you know, and I thought that what was interesting about that is that kind of summed up Killmonger, but it also summed up the problem Killmonger represents, because it's not that Killmonger is just taking over the world for taking over the world. Like there's deep hurt there, mixed with altruism, mixed with, you know, it is that it's all mixed together. That's the problem, is that there's a lack of separation. But the other thing was that T'Challa says that I thought was a great comment, but I'm not sure entirely how it applies, because he says power unearned can be a very volatile force, cousin. It'll get the best of you eventually, on your plane or on ours. And I was thinking, that's like, oh, power unearned, but I feel like Killmonger earned all the power he got. Like he literally started at point A and figured out how many people he had to kill, added a couple hundred on top of it, and then just started working his way down the list. You know, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was unearned. I'm not saying that like that's the best way to earn something, but he is one of the, what I find about interesting on him for a character is he truly does work at everything he has. He is essentially a dark Batman type character.
Yeah.
So Stanford, I'm glad you brought that particular moment up. And the way I experienced T'Challa's line there was, I mean, this is in the context of him becoming the Black Panther after drinking the herb, right? And so, first of all, I thought it was interesting that it was T'Challa who showed up as opposed to his father, as it was in the film. But then also, the power being unearned there was, I think, the way I experienced it was him taking over the mantle of Black Panther without having earned it in the trial by combat that it was part of their rituals, their traditions that we see in the movie. That was what I experienced.
And that's
well, I understand that, but that's still coming from the guy who lost to him.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Travis?
I'll say that's kind of how I viewed it too. Just like the battle of not having a ritual, right? Where, yeah, he did, like Stanford said, he planned and he plotted and he, you know, outsmarted everybody to bring the robots into Wakanda, to power them down, power them up, earn that right, but earned it in a different way than T'Challa can respect, maybe.
No, I agree with I agree with you guys that was the purpose of that line. And for me, it's congruous with the Watcher calling Killmonger a victim. As long as you're in power, you get to say what the rules are for earning it, right? And Killmonger's, I'm gonna earn it according to the way things really work. And he takes out everybody in this power structure, and it becomes a very morally open story. And I thought they expressed a ton of courage, having Killmonger kill Tony Stark. I mean, bam, that was intense. And for me, my favorite line was, the difference between you and me is that you can't see the difference between you and me. That was just before Killmonger killed Stark. And it was true. I mean, Stark has just been in the world in a different way than Killmonger has. And when you're in that position, you're in a position of power. So you can use words like earn, deserve, and stuff like that. I can't say I love this episode, and it makes me sound like I'm pro Killmonger. What I'm pro is moral ambiguity. right? And they just ripped it up. But I thought this was probably the bravest of all the episodes so far. And because of that openness, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like what they did with Tony's character by having him be kind of saved in Afghanistan and not having him eat his humble pie like you were talking about earlier, or being that vulnerable state to where he can be injured, he can be hurt. He's no longer the big man with all the money and, you know, all the power. I think seeing what that does to his character and the path that he goes was huge. And being able to kind of like what Erik was talking about earlier too, with like that hero's journey, you know, and the line that stuck out to me with the Watcher is what a man saved, the hero lost, because he didn't have his journey to go down to become that hero.
How about you, Daniel?
Yeah, I'm just kind of soaking in and processing all of everyone's insightful comments. For me, I did like the episode quite a bit. I wish I could have seen it a second time because I liked it a lot the first time, and as I was thinking about it, as much as I liked it, and I think it was a very well crafted, brilliantly written episode, actually. In some ways, for my own sort of what I personally wanted, it felt to me, and I don't expect it to have necessarily felt like it to other viewers, like somewhat of a loss of an opportunity, in the sense that I don't think there are many people who embrace complexity and nuance in storytelling and characterization, and also who are sensitive to like social justice issues, would look at Killmonger as portrayed in the film and say that's just a straight up bad guy and that's all there is to it, right? None of us would do that. However, the problematic aspect of Killmonger does have to do with what Stanford pointed at earlier, which is everything's jumbled together for him. His desire for social justice and liberation is combined with a personal vendetta, a straight up desire for revenge. Now, you may cite that that's righteous revenge because, yes, his uncle killed his dad, but it's still just straight up revenge, right? And it's mixed also with a genuine desire to see like justice done and to see oppressed people rise up. And it's also mixed in with like, I'm not like this part isn't clear. Like it, from what I see of him in the film, I don't think it's just altruism that drives him to fight for, you know, sort of like lifting oppressed people up, if you will. It's kind of, he seems to have a genuine desire for power for himself. So all this stuff is mixed in with him, which is what makes him, on one hand, a very complex and fascinating and compelling character, but also problematic. And yes, not like a straight up simple villain. But I mean, I don't think any of us at the same time, as much as we appreciate Killmonger as a character, I don't think any of us would be like, yeah, he's right. He should just go do that. And I wish him success, you know, straight up success. I don't know, right? That's problematic. So where I felt like it was a loss of a potential opportunity for me was I would love to see a what if universe in which Killmonger still grows up witnessing the misery and oppression that he wants to alleviate, but somehow he finds like a mentor along the way who helps them distinguish and separate that from his personal desire for revenge. And so it's not all kind of like jumbled together. And maybe, I don't know, like maybe like even, and maybe he could even still be like this person who's very manipulative and sort of essentially kills his way to the top, but then doesn't let that completely poison his soul and is still able to use that to implement genuine change and revolution and justice, and not just kind of like a revolution that starts out hopefully and then leads to yet more tyranny, as we have seen in real life history. Some, you know, so yeah, I would love to see a version of Killmonger that can more just all out root for 100%. And so that was kind of like a personal, for me, it felt like a personal loss of opportunity. Again, I love the episode. I think it was great. I just thought like, this is the version of Killmonger that I want to see personally in a different universe.
Do you think that's because of how he grew up watching his dad? Like they, you know, before his dad dies, you see him talking about guns and having these missions to go with the other guys. Like, do you think that's part of the reason why he's that way? Like that was instilled in him as a child, and that just like that systems theory just plays on?
Yes, and which is why I would love to see a version in an alternate universe where he like we don't see a whole lot of his actual life in the film, right? We just sort of infer based on the way he behaves and what he says. I would love to see a version where he may still lose his dad. He may still grow up and witness all this suffering and oppression, but meets, I don't know, some
Sergeant Fury.
Maybe,
I mean,
or
that was my
someone like,
point.
yeah.
Or maybe some guy who worked for his father takes him in and raises him. Maybe his name's Alfred, and you know, when he comes back from everything, and you know, he's just. I mean, you see where I'm going. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I hate to be glib, but I feel like in some ways I completely agree with you, Daniel. I feel like the problem is that the writers who were writing this what if installment just were not as imaginative as the writers who created Killmonger. I think that they couldn't see beyond Killmonger as a mustache twirling bad guy.
See, okay, so I didn't get that vibe. And again, I'd already, complained about a couple things. For me, this was like act one of a movie, in the sense that I do think that Killmonger has the potential to do all those things that you mentioned, Daniel. I just don't think he's been in that life yet. And one thing I get concerned about is when we don't live a life like he lived. Or for example, we have a vet on hand here on board who's also a trauma expert. When we act as if the violence was something that was supposed to be avoided, that somehow something went wrong in your life because you engaged in violence during warfare, we completely invalidate their experiences right then. I mean, if we're going to be a warmongering culture, which I'm not saying we are, and that's bad. Most countries do have militaries. I just feel that when the public doesn't have a way of engaging these people when they return, that gives them a robust narrative about their own lived life in that context, and hero, villain, those things just don't work. Travis, what do you think?
When you're talking, it made me think about when Tony's talking to the reporters in the episode, and he's like, I saw weapons with my name on them, so we got to be bigger and badder. It's not we got to stop doing it, so we got to hit them harder. And he just cheered and supported, and then he's like, all right, now I'm gonna give Erik this job that I was gonna give Happy. So that was playing a role as you were talking, and just seeing like how people are not only supporting but cheering on Tony's thing of like, hey, we got to be warmongering. We have to be the guys with the big stick on the yard. Whereas in the MCU, he takes that, he's like, no, hey, we got to stop weapons production, because that's not what's going to be best. And then I also think it's that just world belief, right? So I've done bad things, so I'm a bad person. Or I'm a bad person, so I got to keep doing bad things. We good boys get candy and get good grades and go to Disneyland, and bad people, bad boys, bad girls get grounded for a week.
Right.
So you brought up in a violence, like I must be deserving of this. I must be bad. I must be broken. Get that negative self-image, and then you continue on that path.
Any final comments on the episode?
Of the What If, this is probably one of my favorite episodes. So the other ones, except for the Fury's Bad Week episode, I love that one. All the rest of them did kind of like, I haven't really enjoyed them. I haven't felt connected to them. But I thought this one was a little bit better.
How about you, Jarvis? How have you experienced these what ifs?
Well, I tell my friends I'm a cheap date. I just like to be taken from regular life and delve into this fantasy world, and seeing these what ifs as a kid that used to read the comic books, what ifs, and seeing them being brought to life. I'm loving it. And from the first one to this one, I haven't been disappointed. And hopefully we'll get to see some different aspects of the characters in this new multiverse stuff that they're expanding on, that they could probably go on for the next 100 years.
Yeah, I wonder how much of what we're seeing is going to become canon, if any of it is.
I think they've said that they're going to have this be canon. I've read something about that, to where, you know, these, because of the multiverse aspect, it is going to be playing a part.
Okay. All right, then. Any other final comments on the episode? So that about wraps it up for tonight's episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. What If crew members, please tell the audience where they can find you on social media, and we will start with Daniel.
Yes, you can find me on my actual blog, popmythology.com, or on Facebook and Twitter at popmythology.
Fantastic. How about you, Eric?
You can find me on Department of Psychology's webpage through Illinois State University. You can find me on Twitter at Erik Wesselmann, and you can find my film musings at, if you Google normal theater film culture.
Fantastic. How about you, Stanford?
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Clubhouse, and TikTok at SW Carpenter.
Thank you so much. And now for our guests. How about you, Travis?
You can find me on Twitter at @themarine_peer, PEER.
Fantastic. How about you, Jarvis?
And you can find me on most social media at Black Science Fiction Society, or on my direct website, jarvissheffield.com.
Excellent. You can find me on Twitter at dark_loops. You can find all episodes of the What If crew at the Dark Loops Productions channel on YouTube. If you'd like to leave feedback about this podcast, please do so on this YouTube page, or send a message to darkloopsproductions@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to read it at the end of our next podcast. So there it is, from all of us to all of you. Big hugs, and remember,
We are the
Watchers.
Watchers.